Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Today's video is all about recommending horror novels that have creepy houses or creepy schools in them. So this could be a haunted house, a haunted school, or maybe asylum. I might fudge the details a little bit, but that is going to be the focus of today's video. I've got 14 books to talk about, and I think all of them are winners. But first, today's video is part of a book tour for Delicious Monsters by Lizelle Sambury. This is a brand new YA, I would say upper YA horror novel that is coming out in February. I was lucky enough to be given an early copy to read. I have a lot to say about it. Y'all, this book. I mean, I know I'm on the tour for it. I know I'm kind of friends with the author, but I kid you not, this is the best thing I've read in January, and I'm so excited to share it with y'all, so excited for everybody to get it. It goes on sale February 28th, and today I am hosting the Hear Our Voices book tour on behalf of Delicious Monsters, where I'll be recommending to you a bunch of great horror novels that you can pick up in addition to this one. Why creepy houses and schools? Well, it's gonna be because there is a very creepy house at the center of this book. Delicious Monsters follows two different timelines. The later timeline is used kind of as a framing device for the primary story, but also has themes that dovetail nicely with the primary story. Our main character is a young Black woman named Daisy who can see ghosts. She can see dead people. She has a very complicated relationship with her mom. She's getting out of a super toxic relationship, and now she and her mom are picking up and moving to this house with a dark history, and people are probably gonna die. 10 years later, we're following Brittany, who is trying to get out from the thumb of her controlling and abusive mother by hitting it big with a series talking about haunted houses. And as a part of that, she is gonna go and visit this same house. So there's a very creepy haunted house at the center of the book, and it is a book about forgotten Black girls, but it is also a book that tackles some really big and difficult topics like trauma and abuse and sexual assault, and I think handles them really, really well. This book is doing one of my favorite things that I think horror is capable of, which is using the horror genre, in this case a haunted house story, body horror, other forms of horror, as a way of talking about real world issues that are also horrific. If you want to hear more, go check out my Goodreads review. Highly recommend this one though. I want to go just sit down and talk to Lizelle because this book is so smart and so well executed, and I think she does an incredible job of tackling some really nuanced issues. Plus, it's just really creepy. The vibes are immaculate, and she goes pretty hard with body horror scenes. There were a couple of scenes that I was like, oh my God. So highly recommend checking out Delicious Monsters. Thank you so much to Hear Our Voices and to Simon Teen for sending me an early copy. And the links are down below if you want to go and get your own copy. It's fantastic. With that said, let's go ahead and talk about my 13 other recommendations if you're looking for horror with a creepy house or school. Before I get started, I want to make a quick disclaimer that a few of the books on this list are Harpercollins titles, and if you weren't already aware, the Harpercollins union has an ongoing strike that we are more than 2 months into at the moment. I encourage you to use the links down below to go and learn more and support the union where you can. I would love to see them get what they're asking for, which is really reasonable compensation. I realize doing this video is a little bit of a gray area. It's kind of tricky. I am withholding any reviews for Harpercollins titles that I am reading during the strike period. All of the Harpercollins titles that are mentioned in the video today are things that I have reviewed previously on this channel. Also, this is a video that I had signed up to make before the strike was ongoing. So I am going to be talking about some Harpercollins titles today. All of them are backlist titles and books that I have existing reviews for already, but I am continuing to support the Harpercollins union and withhold any new reviews of their titles. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into all of the books. I am pulling from books that are on my shelves that I have read and enjoyed. Are there other books with haunted houses? Yes, there are so many of them, but hopefully in this list you'll find some things that maybe you hadn't heard about before. I am going to begin with one of the more iconic haunted houses in the literary community, and that is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Listen, this book is an experience. I did a spoilery reading vlog where I went through this and tabbed it and annotated the hell out of it. And this book is wild. It is non-linear. It's got different kinds of formatting and footnotes and multiple narratives going on, but it really does get in your head after a while. And at the center of this book is a creepy house. Is it a haunted house? I don't know, but it's certainly a creepy one. This is a book that is definitely an undertaking, but I feel like you're gonna get out of it as much as you choose to put into it. So if you're up for it, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Next is a book that I really loved, even though I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. This is a long novel, and it is quieter horror that has nested storytelling, a story within a story within a story. Again, this totally hit my buttons the way I wanted them to be, but I understand why this is maybe not everybody's favorite thing. But this is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This book has a creepy school, and it is super queer. It's about queer girls throughout history and modernity. And I found the horror factor of this, while it's more mild, to slowly kind of creep up on me, so that by the end I was really invested. I have heard people say they thought it was too slow and they couldn't get into it, but I was such a fan of this. It's set at a cursed New England girls' school. We're following multiple timelines. Way back in like the early 1900s, there were some girls who found a book and creepy things started happening at the school when they read the book. And then years later, a woman wrote a book about what happened, and creepy things kept happening. And then in the modern day, some girls are acting in a adaptation of that book. So it's all kind of centered on this creepy school. It's all nested narratives. I was such a fan of it. So maybe give it a try if it sounds up your alley. For another good haunted house story that is also dealing with family history and trauma and secrets, The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig is a really great one. This is a bit of a genre blend. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil things, but I'll just say that partway through, this book has a bit of a sci-fi twist, so you might want to know that going in. This is centering on a family home where traumatic things happened to multiple generations of people. It's a book that is tackling cycles of abuse and generational abuse and the dark secrets that are kept within families and how it goes on to harm people in the future. Thematically, this reminds me a lot of what Delicious Monsters is doing in some ways, and I was a fan of it. Another great horror novel centered on a house, but in a different way, is a book that is being adapted for film. That is The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. Here is the film adaptation that is about to come out as I'm filming this. I really loved the book, and I'm excited to see what they choose to do with the film. This is more of a home invasion horror story. It follows a family with two dads and their adopted daughter who are going on vacation at a cabin in the woods when their home is invaded and things get very creepy and very violent. One thing that I think is interesting about this book and a lot of Paul Tremblay's other books is it leaves the ending kind of open-ended, and the reader is left to decide for themselves what the ultimate reality is. Was there a scientific, explainable reason for why what happened, or was there a metaphysical one? Who knows? Next, I want to share what is one of my most favorite YA horror books that I've ever read, and I have never heard anybody else talk about it, so I'm constantly trying to push it on people. That is Nightingale by Amy Lukavics. This book, I love it so much. This is a little bit of a stretch because it has a creepy asylum that the main character is sent to, which you could call a school. Sort of. Close enough. It's an institution and it's creepy. We're including it. This is a queer feminist horror novel set in the 1950s following a young woman whose parents have her institutionalized after she refuses to marry her longtime boyfriend. And yeah, this one goes pretty hard too. It's got a lot of body horror in it. It has some interesting twists and turns that are a bit genre bendy at some point in the book. I freaking loved it, and I would love to see more people read it. it. Then for another book that I loved, but people seem to love or hate, this book works for some people and other people don't get it, Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This book is really interesting. It's a modern take on a Gothic novel set at a creepy school, kind of a private university, and it follows a young Black woman who goes there, and once you're there you can't leave for 3 years, and things get weirder and weirder. It has this almost dreamlike quality to it, and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get fully explained or gets explained in really subtle ways, but I loved it. Everything about this worked for me. I thought it was so smart. I loved the way it was tackling these big ideas, and I also really loved learning after I had finished the book that it is a retelling of something, but it's kind of spoilery to tell you ahead of time what it's retelling. If you have read this, I would recommend going and looking it up in an interview that she's given. So Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas is another great one for a creepy school. For a horror novel about a house that's creepy, or maybe the family living in it is creepy, or both? This is The Companion by Katie Allender. This is one that didn't get a ton of attention when it first came out. It was a YA Gothic horror novel about a girl who is orphaned and then taken in by a family who wants her to be a companion to their essentially catatonic daughter. But things get real weird. I don't want to spoil it. There are lots of twists and turns. I loved it, and I loved what this book had to say. My next suggestion is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. This came out in fall of 2022, and it has a very creepy house, and this is a bit of a different take on a Gothic vampire story. It follows a young woman who is in dire financial straits, again, who agrees to take a job as a blood maid, where she will give her blood to be consumed by this very wealthy woman. And so she goes to this creepy house where that is happening, and things get very intense. This is also, I would say, queer erotic horror. It's definitely not romance by any means, but it is erotic, and the ending is wild. I did really like this a lot. I think the pacing leaves a bit to be desired, and I thought the ending wrapped up a little bit too neatly. But overall, I was definitely a fan of what this book was doing. Next on my list is a book that I loved because I think the project of the book spoke to me and to things I care about, but this is a controversial pick because there were a lot of people who did not like this book. That is The 10th Girl by Sarah Faring. This is a YA horror novel set at a haunted Argentinian mansion that has been turned into a school, and it follows a young woman who is the new teacher at this haunted school, and things get very dark and creepy, and there's some twists and turns. I think there are people who did not like the twist and the direction it went. I loved it because I think it's doing some really interesting commentary on stuff that I care about, but I can't really tell you what it is because it's super spoilery. If you are curious and don't mind spoilers, I have a spoiler section in my Goodreads review, and my Goodreads is always linked down below, so you can go and check that out, but I was definitely a fan of this. I will say this too, I don't know all of the details, but I know that there has been some controversy over the author's portrayal of indigenous Argentinian people in this book. I can't speak specifically to that. I know that the author is Argentinian, her family is from Argentina, but I don't believe they're indigenous. So again, do your research, but I did really love the way that this book was written and what it was doing. Next, let's do a couple of novellas. First, we've got What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This has a creepy house. It is a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Fall of the House of the Usher, but really fleshed out and expanded. It's got a non-binary main character, and I really loved it. I think fans of Mexican Gothic would be into this, and it definitely has a creepy house. Then I've got Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Kah. This is a Japanese-inspired haunted house story about a group of friends who decide to spend the night in this haunted house, and things go very, very wrong. It is short, but it packs a punch, and I thought that the writing was really beautiful and lyrical. One more YA option that is kind of a fantasy horror, that is The House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. This is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses fairy tale, but make it creepy seaside horror. So if you're looking for something that's like dark, oceanic, seaside type type horror, this is a good option, and it is centered on a creepy seaside estate where the princesses all live. Finally, I couldn't end this video without talking about what is one of my favorite creepy house stories, and that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is set in 1950s Mexico, following a young woman who is going to check on her cousin who recently got married, and things go pretty wrong at this very, very creepy house. I adore Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing, and I'm so pleased that she's starting to get noticed, and this was kind of the book that really took off for her. It's got creepy fungus and is saying a lot about things like colonization and cultural appropriation and colorism. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and if you're looking for a creepy house, I think this is a good one to go for. There you go. Those are my recommendations if you are looking for a great horror novel with a creepy house or school. And of course, don't forget to go and pre-order Delicious Monsters by Lizelle Sambury. This book is fantastic and definitely has a creepy house. It's great. Highly recommend. Talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know any of your thoughts on anything in this video. And for your question of the day, tell me what is one of your favorite books that has a creepy house or a creepy school. What is your go-to? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, it always helps if you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.